Oh great, so continuing the trend of surpassing the absurdity of the previous film that came before it, how ridiculous is this entry gonna be? Uh-oh. I'm scared.
You fucking should be.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my look at the Child's Play franchise. Today, the series ditches the humor and returns to its roots in horror with Curse of Chucky. Seed was a box office and critical failure. Big surprise there. Making a minuscule $24 million on a $12 million budget, it was the biggest flop for Chucky. It might as well have been the nail in the coffin for the franchise. However, in 2008, Don Mancini and David Kirshner revealed that they were working on a reboot/remake as a response to the fans wanting a return to a scarier Chucky as opposed to the more laid-back comedic version. It was going to be a much darker retelling of the original that had some twists of its own thrown in there, with Brad Dourif, of course, returning to voice Chucky. However, down the line, Mancini was able to come up with a script titled Revenge of Chucky that would act as a sequel, but still be able to maintain the scary tone. By 2012, it was confirmed that this sequel, now titled Curse of Chucky, would enter production, directed once again by Mancini, but be intended for a direct-to-video release. The plot would center around a young paraplegic woman, Nika, played by Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter, living with her mother, but one day mysteriously receives a good guy doll. After the apparent suicide of her mother, things begin to spiral out of control when Nika's sister, Barb, arrives at her house with her family, and strange events begin to occur surrounding the doll. So after the debacle of Seed that put the series in hibernation for 9 years, would a direct-to-video sequel really be a return to form for Chucky? Let's take a look. So the movie begins with a special delivery to Sarah and her wheelchair-bound daughter, Nika, who are living way out of the way in their creepy gothic house. Delivery dude is very flirtatious with Nika when handing over his package.
That's what she said. That's what she said. That's what she said.
Good one.
Of course, it's Chucky, looking cleaner with no scars, but the two don't get why they received the doll, so it's shit-canned by Sarah. That night, Nika hears a scream from her room and finds her mother dead at the bottom of the stairs. Chucky is back in the house, innocently sitting in the chair. In a cool use of camera technique and editing, the credits circle around him to show a passage of time. I also love the new score that plays over it. It reminds me of the original's childlike theme, but here there's something a little more menacing about it. The next day, Nika's sister Barb shows up with Father Frank, a priest from their former church, along with her husband Ian, nanny Jill, and daughter Alice. There are hints that something may be going on between Ian and Jill with his lustful gazes, which don't go unnoticed by Barb. In the bathroom, Alice notices an odd figure in the corner and discovers Chucky, who's looking really weird here. Everything's fine though, and Alice immediately gets attached to Chucky. Meanwhile, Barb is trying to force Nika to move to an assisted living center so they can sell the house and split the money, cause cash is tight in the Barb household. Ian, Jill, and Alice, holding Chucky in a tight grip, return during their conversation. Nika is confused as to how Alice found the doll, but they get off track when she decides to cook dinner for the family. During the process, Chucky is able to sneak in some rat poison into a random bowl of chili, and in what is a fairly drawn out but still kinda tense and well-directed scene, we have to wait and see which person received the tainted food. Geez, which one of these is the most disposable character? After a few fake-outs, Father Frank begins to sweat profusely, leading him to decide to just leave the house. Dude, you've been poisoned, and your first option is to peace out? Let the power of Christ compel you to call an ambulance. Cut to the scene of a car accident where, you guessed it, Father Frank was involved in a head-on collision. In a gruesome sight, Frank is still alive, but his head has been pinned by metal. An officer with ties to him orders the crew to remove the metal. Damn, what a crazy reveal that leads to one gnarly death. Practical effects are well done, and the gore is over the top, but oddly effective. Meanwhile, the family is watching some home movies that include a pregnant Sarah with her husband, who drowned shortly before Nika was born. But in the background, they spot a lurker who looks an awful lot like Brad Dourif. Alice comes in complaining that Chucky is missing, so Jill is sent to look for him, only to have a run-in with Barb in the kitchen, where we get the reveal that it's the two of them in the passionate love affair. Nice spin there, movie. I'll give you that one. Nika finds Chucky lounging on the couch with Ian and uses her elevator to take him back up to Alice. However, she notices a knife cut on her leg she couldn't feel after having an argument with Barb over whether or not she can take care of herself. Alice gets tucked into bed, but not before she can tell her mother some of the things Chucky has been telling her.
He says there is no God. He said that life's a bitch and then you die bleeding like a stuck pig.
This feels very similar to when Andy told Karen that Chucky told him Aunt Maggie was a real bitch and got what she deserved, but it feels a little more unsettling here that he would tell a little girl that there's no God and everyone is gonna die. The movie is definitely achieving what it set out to do in being darker, and it's about to get even more cynical after Alice gets under the covers to hide.
Chucky, I'm scared.
You fucking should be.
I'm not a fan of Chucky's new clean look here. His face just seems really off, very different from the design from the first three. But I love this moment because we're halfway through and it's the first time we've heard Chucky speak and act. It's a nice build-up and payoff since we're all here for him. It also helps that his first line is malevolent as hell. Nika is off doing some detective work and calls the place that sent the doll, discovering that it came from an evidence depository. She goes to internet search to continue her research, finding out the events surrounding a killer good guy doll, including Andy Barclay's incidents. This leads her down the rabbit hole of finding Charles Lee Ray, the man spotted in their home movies. Upstairs, Jill and Barb are having a little cyber sexy time, even though they're literally down the hall from each other. But Jill is interrupted when Chucky kicks over a bucket of water onto the electrical outlet her laptop is plugged into, frying her and cutting the power.
Women. Can't live with them. Period.
Little impractical, but cool death nonetheless. I like how Jill is just silent the entire time, and you see her one eye is just progressively burning. Barb goes to check on Jill, but Ian confronts her, revealing that he knows she and Jill are having an affair and threatens to take Alice away from her because he can prove the infidelity with the nanny cam he planted on the doll. Barb, of course, denies all the accusations, but he plugs his ears and goes back to bed. Barb finds Chucky in the hallway, but an extreme misunderstanding leads to an argument when Nika tries to warn her the doll is possessed, but she thinks she's talking about the nanny cam plant. Barb heads up to the attic to find Alice, but determined to save her, Nika crawls her way upstairs since the elevator has been disabled. Barb then gets a closer look at Chucky and begins to peel away at him to reveal his hidden scars. A jump scare backs her into a corner as Chucky undoes the rest of his cover-up.
You have your mother's eyes. And they were always too fucking close together!
I love everything in this scene. The stitched up Chucky reveal is great because up to this point you're not really sure where this fits in the series because of the clean look, but now we know this is 100% a sequel to the last one. The Stitch design looks much better and is actually a little freaky. And to cap it off, he one-liners a character who has been up to this point a major bitch. So Nika finally makes it upstairs, but an eyeball and Barb come tumbling down the stairs, followed shortly by a pretty bad CGI Chucky.
I'm gonna get you.
Nika rushes into Ian's room, and after seeing the dead bodies of Jill and Barb, he helps her get down to the garage, but runs back in to find Alice. This gives Chucky the opportunity to lock himself in the car and try to kill Nika with carbon monoxide poisoning. Ian gets back just in time, but he thinks she's responsible for the murders and refuses to help her when she has a heart attack? I don't know, it's some sort of heart failure thing that was briefly mentioned earlier, but she wakes up in Ian's room, duct taped to her wheelchair. He pulls up the nanny cam footage to see that Alice was locked in a closet, but then he switches to the live feed to see Chucky's POV walking into the room. Chucky pushes Nika into Ian and with an axe in hand, gets to work.
Say hi to the little woman for me. Maybe not.
These have been some brutal-ass kills. I love it. Chucky turns to Nika, but she gets the upper hand when his axe gets stuck in her leg. She pries it out and decapitates him, but there's no blood or anything. In fact, Chucky just gets right back up, screws his head on, and pushes Nika off the banister onto the first floor. Somehow still alive, Nika tells Chucky she knows he's Charles Lee Ray, and he claims to be a friend of the family. In a flashback, Charles meets Sarah and her husband, but shortly after a funeral is held for the father, it's implied through some creepy glances that Charles killed him. Cut to what feels like a very out of character scene for Charles as he's kidnapped Sarah, wanting to be a part of her family. Luckily, the police arrive, but unfortunately not before he can stab Sarah in the stomach. It's because of him that Nika is paralyzed, but Chucky emphasizes that it was her and her family that turned him into what he is, because those events apparently took place the same night he was gunned down and transferred his soul. It took him 25 years to track them down, and he had to go through plenty of families, including the Barclays, Kincaids, and Tillys, but hers was always his favorite. Nika mentions that he never did kill Andy Barclay, so as a male, he must be suffering from completion anxiety.
I'm gonna kill you slow.
25 years must be the slowest murder in history.
Suddenly the power comes back on and she races to the elevator, but it goes out again just as quickly, trapping her. Chucky attacks, but she's able to grab a hold of his knife and stab him in the back, only to pull out and have stuffing fly out. A police officer, who knew Father Frank was last seen at Nika's home, shows up to find dead bodies and Nika holding a bloody knife, while Chucky is back in his rocking chair. Flash to Nika being convicted of the murders in court and sentenced to a facility for the mentally unstable. The officer takes Chucky in an evidence bag and calls someone in his car about getting his money. Why do I have this feeling of deja vu? So Tiffany is still around in Jennifer Tilly's body apparently, and she's off to deliver Chucky to his next target. Turns out he was shipped to Alice's home with her grandmother. Grandma's nowhere to be found, so Chucky wants to play a game of hide the soul, since Alice is someone that no one would ever suspect. Well, that was Curse of Chucky. My overall thoughts... Wait, what? An after credits scene? Is Samuel L. Jackson gonna recruit Chucky to the Avengers? This random guy gets what is clearly Chucky, but through a slow reveal we discovered this man is Andy Barclay, played by original actor Alex Vincent. Chucky cuts his way out, ready to kill his longtime enemy.
Play with this.
Andy!
That was awesome. So my actual overall thoughts on Curse of Chucky. I really like it. I have my issues, which I'll get to, but I'm a big advocate of returning to a scarier atmosphere after diving into comedy that belly flopped with Seed. I was nervous about Mancini's second venture into directing, but I think his skill was on better display this time around. Setting the story in an old gothic house was able to establish a fantastic, creepy atmosphere and provide a chance for some well-lit and surprisingly beautiful cinematography. Separating the family from everyone sets up a good sense of isolation, so you know when shit hits the fan, there aren't going to be many options for them. I think they did a real good job of making the viewers guess what exactly the film was, reboot, remake, or sequel. When this was initially released, fans were speculating because they were going back to straight up horror, introducing completely new characters, appearing to ignore previous entries, and returning Chucky to his clean good guy design. So the way everything unfolds with Nika's research and the eventual reveal of the makeup covering Chucky's scars is executed well enough that it even surprised die-hard fans on first watch. The one-liners are still there, but I'd say this is definitely the freakiest entry since the original. They make you wait for so long until you actually get to see Chucky do or even say anything, similar to the original. Him stalking the already eerie house provides some decent scares that had been sorely lacking in the previous movies. Chucky is also a serious badass here. I'd be willing to say it's the meanest he's ever been with how cruel he is to Alice, Nika, and everyone else for that matter. He doesn't hold back with his kills, between stabbing Barb in the eye and chopping off Ian's jaw, which both looked great and were definitely a good mix of practical and digital effects. And it was partly an indirect Chucky kill, but the decapitation of Father Frank is dark as hell. The cast is very small, but I think Fiona Dourif steals the show as Nika. She's the best protagonist in the series since Andy. She's tough, smart, and a true fighter despite being in a wheelchair. In fact, she's more capable than those that can walk, not letting her disability get in the way of what she wants to do, determined to prove everybody wrong. So it's a shame to see that ultimately in the end, Chucky does beat her, killing her family and pinning the murders on her. But even when she's being hauled away to the insane asylum, she looks at it as a victory for her because she's still alive. In that after credits scene, that was a gigantic love letter from Mancini. He finally brings back Andy, played by his original actor, and you think Chucky's gonna finally get him after all these years, but Andy has been prepared, blowing his head off screen. It really would have been a perfect ending for Chucky, but the sequel fucks that up. Still an awesome moment for fans. For my negatives, I'd say that while the cast is small, I think the characters aren't overly interesting besides Nika. I think the acting we get from everyone is C/D tier. I wish they dealt more with the grief being felt over the death of Sarah rather than the subplots of Barb wanting Nika to leave so she can sell the house and the love affair with the nanny. That part of the family is dealing with their own shit the whole time, and I just think it detracts from what's going on sometimes. I mentioned that I'm not a fan of Chucky's clean look for the portion that it's seen. The scar look is so much scarier and cool, while the clean look is just goofy. I can't explain it, there's just something seriously off with it. What I didn't talk about is how it makes no sense when Chucky is decapitated and stabbed in the back and we see he has more doll attributes, going unfazed and twisting his head back on and stuffing raining down instead of blood. I have no idea why this is the case. The rule has always been that the longer you stay in the doll, the more human you become. There's never an explanation why this is no longer the case. The movie just expects you to accept it. Then there's the whole flashback to Charles Lee Ray. While I enjoyed seeing Durf back in human form, the whole thing seemed out of character for Charles. Why would this guy known as the Lakeshore Strangler be obsessed with becoming a family man to this woman? Didn't he have Tiffany at the time? And the whole retcon that he was being chased in the original because he was on the run from cops who found him holding Sarah hostage doesn't make sense to me. Did his getaway driver, Eddie Caputo, know what was going on and wait for him? While the original never does explain why Charles was running, I always assumed he was caught in the act or was trying to rob someplace only to be chased down by Detective Norris. I'm sure there are those that don't have a problem with this being the backstory of the night Charles transferred his soul and became Chucky, but the whole situation and his motives feel out of place and forced in order to connect this to the rest of the franchise. So while 90% of the cast isn't very good, Chucky has an unexplained ability to be fine after injuries and a backstory filled with inconsistency. I do enjoy the film for going back to its scary roots, shockingly nice cinematography and direction for direct-to-video, a perfect protagonist in Nika, a meaner Chucky, bloody-ass kills, and an awesome after-credits ending. I give Curse of Chucky 3.5 poison bowls of chili out of 5. But let me know what you guys think. Did you like that this was more horror and less comedy? Thoughts on Nika as the new protagonist? Care to explain why Chucky doesn't bleed anymore? And what was your favorite kill? Don't forget to subscribe and follow my Twitter and Instagram. Links to those are in the description. Next week, things go back to being weird in Cult of Chucky. Until next time, peace.